I want to start off with telling you all who we are. Noble Hill is a Rosenwald funded school. In 1923, like Trey stated, my great grandfather, Webster Wheeler, was the chief contractor of the school, and of course he had other builders in the community that helped him build the school. So I count it an honor and privilege to have many family ties to the Noble Hill School. And I don't know if you guys have heard of Julius Rosenwald. He had the Rosenwald Fund to help build almost 5,000 schools. It's 4,000 and something, but almost 5,000 schools in the South back in the early 1920s. Okay, so we're going to start with our presentation here. All right, before Noble Hill, there were students in 1904 at the Cassville Colored School, and this is technically before Noble Hill existed. Okay, so help was on the way. In 1912, Julius Rosenwald, a wealthy Illinois philanthropist, donated an initial $25,000 to Tuskegee Institute in Alabama for the construction of schools that would provide a vocational education to black students. By 1932, the Julius Rosenwald Fund had donated additional funds that were used to build 4,977 school buildings throughout the South. Inspired by Booker T. Washington, Rosenwald became a trustee of Tuskegee Institute in Alabama, where Washington's philosophy of self-reliance was stressed through a program of industrial education. In 1912, on Rosenwald's 50th birthday, the philanthropist gave the Tuskegee Institute $25,000 to be distributed as grants for other African American schools that followed the Tuskegee model. Washington persuaded Rosenwald to use approximately $2,000 of this money to begin an experiment in building elementary schools for blacks in rural communities. Several small schools in rural Alabama were funded in part from the initial $2,000, and over the next 4 years, Rosenwald constructed private funds for the construction of more than 242 rural school buildings in southern states. The Noble Hill School became the first Rosenwald-funded school in northwest Georgia. The Rosenwald Fund paid a portion of the cost of building the new school, and black families paid the other portion at Booker T. Washington's suggestion. This would assure active interest and participation. Okay, there's a photo of Booker T. Washington, founder of the Tuskegee University. And this is a photo of the philanthropist Julius Rosenwald. He was also the Sears Roebuck and Company president. How many of you guys knew that? Awesome. Yeah, we learn something new every day, don't we? And that's a picture of Julius Rosenwald and Booker T. Washington. A lot of these photos are at Noble Hill. That's one of the builders, Danny Harris, who also worked with my great-grandfather to construct the building. Okay, and this is my great-grandfather, Mr. Webster Wheeler. Okay, and he was also one of our visionary, Dr. Susie Williams Wheeler, her father-in-law. And this is one of the coal and wood-burning heaters that was at the Noble Hill Center. And these are the first teachers that taught at Noble Hill. C.W. and Myra Williams knew about the Rosenwald Fund. And so when they knew that a school was needed for the black children in Cassville, they were willing and ready to move from Florida to, Atlanta, to come up here to help with the school. Can anybody pick out Dr. Susie Williams Wheeler in the center of this photo? I gotta make sure. There's the little. These were the type of desks used back then in the early 1900s, and we do have those on display at Noble Hill. I was told that the desks were nailed in the floor, and I also asked my Aunt Marian. She told me, she said, I said, how did you guys learn? Because the grades were 1 through 7. She said, it was like a row of first graders, a row of second graders, and a row of third graders. And they were all on one side because it was a two-room Rosenwald school. And the other classes, upper grades, were on the opposite side. And she said that sometimes that it was two kids to a desk. I said, you guys were really little, so I guess it worked. And I thought that was a cool tip to know. And then I asked her, how did you guys all learn, with the different grades? I was told that the older kids helped the younger kids. This is one of the water buckets and dippers that they used back in the day, too. I know I was told that you couldn't be a germaphobe back then because you had to share a lot of things. So they just said a prayer. They just said a prayer and kept it moving. Okay? And that's also inside the museum. This is a portable stove. This one was found under the crawl space at Noble Hill. It was a lot of rubble that they buried that they didn't get rid of when they restored Noble Hill. Because I always thought they tore it down and rebuilt it. They were like, no, we just restored it from the way it was. So I was like, okay, cool. And this was found later. I think they had to fix a pipe that burst, and they had to go under in the crawl space, fix it, whatever, and they pulled out a couple of artifacts from under there. So that's just one thing we show here that was there that they found. And this is one of the original doorknobs. It still exists today. That's the original flooring you see here. And we're getting ready to go through a rehab the inside of the building. So those floors will be kind of fixed, but we're not changing them because it has to stay to its original state. These are area educators and Dr. Susie Weems-Wheeler. And she was a gene supervisor. Anybody know what a gene supervisor was back then? She was in charge of the curriculum of the black schools. So they were, a lot of those at that time. Can anybody pick out Dr. Susie Weems-Wheeler in this picture? Right here. And she's my great aunt. So, Noble Hill School served as Cassville's elementary school for blacks from 1923 until 1955. County schools for blacks consolidated into Bartow Elementary, which is now Hamilton Crossing. Of course, that building was tore down and rebuilt, but Bartow Elementary was in the same location as Hamilton Crossing. Noble Hill stood vacant and started to decay, so it sat for 25 years. It was very dilapidated. And there's a picture of Dr. Susie Weems-Wheeler. She was one of our visionaries that started the restoration project in 1982, and it was completed in '89. That's when it opened to become a Cultural Heritage Museum. And also, if you don't know, she was one of the visionaries, but also former Supreme Court Justice Robert Benham was also one of the visionaries, and he's currently an advisor for our Noble Hill Foundation Board. That's Mr. Bethel Wheeler, Dr. Susie Wheeler's brother-in-law. He owned the Wheeler home, and his wife was an educator at Noble Hill. Her name was Bertha Wheeler. And so when you come to Noble Hill, you can look out to your left and see the Wheeler home. It's a yellow house sitting there. We're also trying to get that rehabbed and fixed up for different programs because we have different, like the AUW, the retired educators, they come and do their luncheons at Noble Hill in honor of Dr. Susie Wheeler. She was a part of all of this, those groups. And so they like to come and in honor of her, I know the AAUW gives out scholarships while they're there for their meeting and their luncheon. Funding the Noble Hill Wheeler Memorial Center project. Beginning in 1982, Dr. Susie Weems-Wheeler began raising funds. Through private donations over a period of 5 years, she raised $200,000. Before restoration, this is Noble Hill. When it sat for 25 years, it was very dilapidated. That's why I thought, hey, they tore it down and rebuilt it. No. That's why they weren't able to carry off all the rubble, so they started burying it. So that's why you never know, you might find something else. Okay, this is after restoration in 1989. Okay, and this is our historical marker and National Historic Preservation Site. And this is just showing one of our visitors. That's also one of our current board members, Alexis Carter Callahan. And this is the retired educators meeting. That's one of their meetings. The Rosenwald schools all were built to certain specifications because you see the little lights in there, right there? They didn't exist. They didn't have any electricity. My Aunt Marian told me a story of, I asked her, I said, well, what happens when it's too dark, like if it's storming outside, like today? She said they would get to go home at 12 noon because they couldn't see anything anymore. And they also didn't have restrooms. They had outhouses. So I was like, wow. But the restroom portion at Noble Hill was built in 1988. That part of the building was added. So we do have restrooms. Okay, there's some of the young visitors. We have, back in the day when Marian was curator, a lot of the schools were participating here in Bartow County, but after things changed, they were no longer coming to visit. But that's starting to change. So I know we had Excel Academy last year. They had 50 students to come through. That was a blessing. And we also have different tours out of Atlanta and from around different cities to come. We do have the big tour buses come. Normally every year. I have people calling now, can we come and visit? Like, I'm sorry, we're getting ready for our rehab. We're taking things down. And, you know, I refer them to the website. You know, go look at the website. You can donate if you'd like. But we hope to invite you guys out next year when we have some new exhibits and different things, because we're going to do a lot of different things with Noble Hill for future. This is another program that we do in the summer when school is out, the annual Summer Heritage Program. We have different speakers in Bartow County, and last year we had speakers from outside of Bartow County, educators and things that I pulled from my own church. Also got to partner with the bookmobile last year. The kids really enjoyed that, so they could stay on track with reading on grade level while they were out of school. So they were able to check out books every Wednesday. The program is every Wednesday for the whole month of June. It's just one day a week. It's free to the public, so we always, you know, we're open to anybody's child can come for free. And we also partner with the Summer Meals program in Cartersville, so the kids will have a free lunch. So we make sure the kids in the community are fed here in Bartow County and Cartersville. This is just one of the educational programs that was done for one of the Summer Heritage Program. I think they learned about China or something that year. This is our annual Labor Day homecoming, where our alumni and educators that were at Noble Hill come together to share their oral histories and knowledge and anything else, wisdom, and just impart history into our young people and anybody, you know, who wants to know about Noble Hill. So that's them kind of reminiscing, and I guess you can see the Julius Rosenwald book on the table, and they're just reminiscing. And normally we have a cakewalk, games. We try to teach the young people how to play, get off the video games and play hopscotch and, you know, the jacks and the marbles that we used to play with. Try to get them off the computers for a while to be a kid, you know. So we enjoy doing that. And we also have food available. We normally have fish, chicken, different things, and people come and donate because it's also a fundraiser. They donate, buy a plate, and just enjoy everybody's company and just learn the history of Noble Hill. And this is our annual Unsung Heroes Banquet. I'm sure most of you have heard about our Unsung Heroes Banquet. But what it is we honor someone in Bartow County for all their work that they've done. Last year, for instance, it was Mr. Ralph Lowe. He's also a current foundation board member at Noble Hill. So that was wonderful. And this is from 2018. We honored Vic Beasley and a lot of the athletes that come from Bartow County. It was several. Vic Beasley was able to make it. We were so excited. So it was an honor and privilege that he had the time off when we did the Unsung Heroes, because we honored several others. And so we had a joyous time. As you can see, we have Dr. Wheeler's picture in the cup up there. When we decorated, we thought of that because we make sure we honor her every banquet. And this is our annual Kwanzaa celebration. It starts after Christmas on the 26th. And we normally do like one program, because it's hard to get the community to come out because it's after Christmas and they're enjoying their families. So we just do one day, but we, talk about Kwanzaa. Okay? And this is just to show you that we do get the big buses, especially out of Atlanta. They come all the time. Actually, since right before the pandemic hit this year, February, we took the tour on the road. We went to Elizabeth Baptist Church in Atlanta, this huge, beautiful church. And they wanted us to do their Black History program. And so we were like, sure, well, And we were blessed that Ellen Archer at the CVB, let us use the bus to promote Bartow County. That was awesome, too, and everybody loved the bus. So we were very happy to have promoted Bartow County doing that tour for them. This is a picture of Dr. Susie Weems-Wheeler, and she's a part of the exhibit here at Bartow History Museum. So tell your family and friends to come and see the wonderful exhibit here. It's awesome. And also, this is my wonderful aunt, Lily Marian Wheeler Coleman. I put her whole name so you could understand. She's also part of the exhibit. These are icons for Noble Hill. They really go hard for Noble Hill, and that's why we're still standing today. Also, I wanted Marian to come up and just give you guys just her day-to-day experience at Noble Hill. I know you don't want to sit here and hear me talk about, things, because when it comes from a person that experienced it, it feels like, that you're really learning something about their experience. So if she doesn't mind, I'd like her to just share her experience.
My experience at Noble Hill started in the 1950s. I started at Noble Hill in 1952. And I was only there for 3 years because the school closed in 1955. And all of the county schools consolidated into Bartow Elementary School. And that's where we went in 1955. But as a small child, I was very, I'm going to say timid and afraid, but I enjoyed going to Noble Hill in my first, second, and third grades because I loved my teacher. She was so kind and friendly and so warm-hearted. It was a desire for me every morning to get up to go to school. But I was fortunate because I didn't have to walk to school like my parents and my aunts and uncles that also attended Noble Hill. They had started bus transportation when I went, so I didn't have to walk to school as some of those did. But when we get there in the morning, after we get off the bus, we would go in class and our teacher would sit us down and we would have a devotion. And I know they don't do devotions anymore. They probably don't even know what that is. Some kids don't. But we would have to pray, and we would learn memory verses that we would recite. We had to pledge to the flag, as they do some today. And we had to recite different things like poems, and we would have songs that we sung. And some of the songs that I was teaching some of my grandkids, they were laughing because they were some of the things that we learned when I was in school. Little Sally Walker, if they might sing that. And we had a little song that says Bingo, the little dog that was named Bingo. We also sung songs that were games that we played outside. We played ring games when we went outside to play. We didn't have a cafeteria, so we would usually eat our lunch at lunchtime outside on the playground where we played. And I was telling some of my children that we had to be separated. Boys and girls didn't play together. We had to be separated on the playground. The boys were usually in the wooded area, and the girls were usually on the where the parking lot is now. That would be where we would be. And a lot of times we would go out in the woods, some of the girls, and we would build houses with pine straw, pine needles. We would build us a house, and we would have mud and we cook, and we did all these type things out in the during recess time. The boys had basketball, they had softball, and things like that they would play outside. But most of the time, if it was raining or bad weather, we would eat on the inside at our desk. Now, when the school first opened, there wasn't a cafeteria, and everybody had to bring their lunch to school. And most of the time, the lunches were packed in bags that the kids would bring, and whatever they'd have for supper that night before school, they would bring leftovers. And some of them would have biscuits with sausage, some would have ham, some would have different types of biscuits, and the little bags would get greasy. So we had a cloakroom. There were 2 classrooms, and there were 2 cloakrooms. On the cloakrooms, this was where we put our coats, and we put our lunches and our bags and things that we would bring in. And a lot of children didn't have food to bring. And you would have to be careful, because if you left your lunch in the cloakroom, a lot of times when you go back to get it, it wouldn't be there. Some of the kids would have gotten your lunch and eaten it, and we did share lunches, and the teacher would have to, punish them. And the cloakroom was also where the kids got their spankings. So she would have a paddle there in the cloakroom. And hearing those in the cloakroom get paddled would keep you from wanting to go in there. And so most of the time, this is how she kept order in the classroom. But we learned. It didn't stop us from learning. All our teachers were very dedicated to helping us to learn, and we were able to go through Noble Hill from the 7th grade. We went to Bartow Elementary, and we graduated from the 8th grade. But there was only one high school during that time, and that was Summer Hill High School. So we had to be bused to Cartersville, to Summer Hill High School. And there, it started off early years to the 11th grade. We have some photos of classes at the Noble Hill Center that graduated from 11th grade. And we have the first class that graduated from the 12th grade. It finally added on till they got 12th grades. But during the time, this was the early years when we only had a few grades. But when I graduated, we had all grades. Everything was there. So it was really nice to me to have a school building, because when you look back at the photos of the classes and the school, the buildings that they had school in some were large halls, some were army barracks that had to be pulled up, and Noble Hill had to have an army barracks during the years I was there, because there were close to 100 kids that had to be housed in those 2 rooms, and they couldn't do it, so they had to bring an army barracks up to house some of those children. I remember that because I had to be in an army barracks in 3rd grade. And this is how a lot of the kids, before we closed down in 1955, they were in army barracks. A lot of schools, I would say, like the Mission Road School and the Sugar Valley School, they had to be condemned, so they transported them to Noble Hill. So that's how we got so many children. And also what was good about it, their teachers came with them. In the early years, there were only 2 teachers to divide the classes up. But after these 2 schools consolidated into Noble Hill, then that let us have more teachers. So I remember 3 teachers in my classroom. My first grade teacher, my second grade teacher, and my third grade teacher. But my third grade teacher, there were so many, we had to go into the Army barracks that they pulled up. But anybody have any questions they want to ask at this time?
Do you guys have a directory if you followed any of the graduates at all, like a prominent, prominent graduates or anything like that?
Where they ended up?
Yeah.
We don't have a directory, but we do have on file those that went, the classes that went to Noble Hill and the classes that went to Bartow Elementary and went on to Summerhill High School. And Dr. Susan Wheeler was the one that went all the way because she finally got her doctor's degree. And another person that you might know would be Jackie Beavers, Bishop Beavers. Now, he went there. I was trying to think of some others, but we do have some that became teachers, that became lawyers, that became nurses, doctors. The doctor that was from Cartersville, he didn't practice medicine here, but he was born here. And so we had a doctor that came to Cartersville to practice medicine, and he was Dr. Williams that we had on display. We have some of his books, and we have a picture of his little house where he did his practice. We have that up. But we don't, it's not, it's just most of this is on file because we're trying to get all of this put together so it can be really put with various technologies. We get more people that know about technology so we can get this all, put it on the computer and in different files so it can be easily found. But we do have some on files. Okay. Mm-hmm. I don't have a class picture from Noble Hill. We do have a few class photos of the early years, but not when I was there. Our photos came when we went to Bartow Elementary. That's when we had a photographer to come in and take class photos. But I don't have one from Noble Hill.
About the same time you did. And that would never have been, how in the world, why?
No, we didn't get to play together.
I just don't understand what.
And it could have been the teachers. They might have had it like that. The teachers would come out and play with us, play games with the girls, and the boys would have, the teachers would play games with the boys, or they would play by themselves in the woods, but we weren't allowed to. We weren't allowed to play together. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How far away do you think some of the students came that you went to class with?
They had to walk to school,
Or
being bused from school. Yes, as far as Mission, I don't know if you're familiar with where the Mission Road is. There was a school in that area, and Sugar Valley. I'm trying to think of some others. Those were the farthest, but
most of the students then came from Cassville?
most, yes, all the students were from Cassville, and I think Mr. James Hurd was telling us he had to walk about 3 miles to school.
Do you mind telling us what you remember about the Army barracks that you did your third grade in? I've never heard of that. I'd love to hear more about it.
Well, I'm not sure where it was pulled from.
Or just what it looked like.
Oh, one room. A single room. It wasn't divided up. We were all in one classroom. But so this was just like I would say like a trailer. Like you get a trailer to have classes in. It was more like that to me. But it was just one big large room, yes. We had to get in front of the class and recite our timetables. And if you missed one, she would be there with the paddle to make sure you didn't get it wrong the next time.
Do they even teach that today, timetable? Everything's computer.
Yes, everything is computer, that's right. Handwriting, all that. We
Are
had to,
all of your teachers able to go with you from the school to Bartow School?
yes, Bartow Elementary, yes, they were. They sure were. And that, I was glad about that.
Did you have a favorite subject?
I would say spelling. I loved spelling because we had turned down, and you had she always played games with us with spelling, and we the ones left standing were the best spellers. I enjoyed that.
Okay, we're going to move on so we won't hold you guys up. All right, I wanted to share something with you guys that took place last year. This quilt was gifted to Noble Hill from the quilt artist Teresa Cook. I know you know her.
I was gonna say, and I think I might even have a picture.
Okay, and we went to the Atlanta Quilt Festival last year in August. We were invited by O.V. Brantley. She was attorney for Fulton County, but she's been retired, so she started a quilt guild there in Atlanta. So they do these quilt shows normally every year in August.
I see a blue ribbon.
Yeah, we did win an honorable mention. We did. But that's there at their facility in Atlanta. Okay, this is a picture of myself and Teresa Cook, the artist. She's a part of the Etowah Quilt Guild. And we became friends working on a committee. Trey, Sherry Henshaw, Melissa Phillips, Barbara Ford, Lily Reed. So I was going to bring it tonight, but due to the rain, Teresa threatened me. She said no. I said, okay, yes, ma'am. So I said, well, I'll make it a part of the presentation and we can share it still. But after we finish our rehab, hopefully by the end of next year, hopefully, you guys can come visit and, take a look at it. And this, you'll see Marva Swanson in the beautiful African-looking skirt, and Teresa and O.V. Brantley. And they founded the Brown Sugar Stitchers Quilt Guild in Atlanta. So that's Teresa receiving the honorable mention ribbon. Because we didn't think we would win. That was her first time entering something. She's like, we're not going to win. I said, don't say that. You never know. But we were blessed to get an honorable mention, so we were very proud.
Beautiful.
Oh, yes. She did an excellent job. She took her time with it. And she named it A Noble Idea Set Upon the Hill. So that's what it was named. After I gave her the tour of Noble Hill, she decided she wanted to do an art quilt for us. And I said, that was just such a blessing to us. We really appreciate her for that. And then as you can see, it starts with Booker T. Washington and Julius Rosenwald. And then my great-great-grandfather, Mr. Webster Wheeler. And then Bertha and Bethel Wheeler, who own the Wheeler home outside of Noble Hill. Then you see Dr. Susie Wheeler, our visionary, and also a student of Noble Hill. And then former Supreme Court Justice Robert Benham. He was also one of our visionaries for the restoration of Noble Hill, and he's also an advisor of our foundation board. And then we have the first trustees of the foundation board. You have Mr. Alan Beavers, and then you have Mr. Strickland, and then you have Mr. Willie Wofford. He's still a part of our foundation board today, and he was also a student in Noble Hill. And then you have the beautiful Joy Hill. She was with us for a year at Noble Hill before she passed away. And then beside her is one of our former board presidents, Cheryl Smith. And so she was one of the former chair presidents of the foundation. And then you have at the end our new board president, Reverend Louise Young Harris, myself, and then Aunt Marian as the former curator. She was the longest running curator. She was there 21 years, is that correct? So she was the longest running. So I'm still learning a lot about the oral histories and different stories. I find something out new every time I talk to some of the students from Noble Hill. And we have lost a couple of students from Noble Hill, so that's why we try to capture oral histories just in case. And we do have some on file at Noble Hill, some of the oral histories. And we're working on doing a new one soon so we can post it to YouTube. So we have several projects, and we also have a book at Noble Hill that was created in 1990s after I think Dr. Wheeler and some of the other trustees worked on putting a small book together just to tell you the history of Noble Hill. We have that there on file. I think Trey has one as well that he can share. And we're working on also creating another book of what happened, who visited, that kind of thing, when Aunt Marian was there, because she has plenty of stories in her, and I'm still learning things. But it's been an honor and a pleasure to work with her and you know, create programs for the community. And we also do field trips, right, Trey? We have a wonderful time doing little fundraiser field trips. And I think last year we went to Tennessee up there to one of the jazz museums up there. It was wonderful. We had a great time. We had the middle-aged, the young people, and the elderly people. So we had a great time. I said, I miss my trips. So I want to thank you all for being a part tonight. I know under different circumstances, you know, we have to be careful and everything, but we will get through this. And it's been an honor and a privilege. I want to give a shout out to Trey and his team again for inviting us tonight. We appreciate you guys so much. And we're just elated to share the history of Noble Hill. Thank you, and God bless you all.